Welcome to another week, episode 44, Experience Andy Weins Live. Today, we're going to be talking about agreeing, acknowledging, and accepting. These are three very different things. They are not the same thing. And often, we as humans, we get them confused when we're having conflict of perspective with other people. So, first thing we're going to dive into today is gratitude. I always start off the week with the gratitude. The more I practice gratitude, I'm realizing the more I see it every day because I'm looking for reasons to get excited about the day versus reasons to be upset. So I firmly believe in it. And I re engage and say this every time because I want you to also consider it yourself the importance of gratitude and something that has not come natural to me. And so something I've been very intentional about doing in my life. So this week, I am grateful for my Army buddies. I'm away right now. That's hence the shaven face, doing my Army thing. Every year I need to do it. And I'm very fortunate that one of the places that I serve, I have a few buddies that live in the area. So Saturday night, I had dinner with a guy I served with in Iraq. Another Sunday, I went and got together with another guy I went to Iraq with, and on Wednesday this week, I'm going out for dinner with another guy I served with. Two of these guys I have not seen since 2007 when we got back home from Iraq. So the guy on Sunday I saw, Sergeant Santos, I have not seen him in 17 years. We're Facebook friends. We chat from time to time, but I haven't been in his presence. And first thing I did is give him a handshake and a hug, right? Because there's this genuine love that we have for each other as brothers and sisters in arms. And so I'm very grateful that I have a group of men and women that I've known for 20 years in my military experience that I can lean in on anytime. And I'm forever grateful for that. And as I've now completed 20 years in the military, and I have up to 20 more to go, we'll see. I thought about my experience in the military. And in the military, the only thing worse than being in the military is not being in the military. And that's a great mindset I've learned over time. And my challenge to you is think about the things that you get to do every day. And although you may have to embrace the suck, think about what it might be like to not be able to embrace that level of suck. So something to think about. And that's what the military is, embracing the suck. And then you get to reap the rewards in long term. Next, over business, let's go do some business stuff. So I've been talking a lot about lately, get on podcast, and the universe is responding. So I'm going to keep talking about that. I've picked up a couple podcasts. I'm averaging like one or two podcasts a week here in the next couple of weeks. People and podcasts that I need to be on, let me know. And I'd love to schedule a time. Got one coming up. It's like Millionaire Monday Mornings. We're going to talk about business success. I have another one. It's all about mindset. So really anything, business, entrepreneurship, veterans, the environment, all those things I'm really excited about getting on other people's podcasts about. So when there's podcasts you can think of, let me know. Let's talk about this. To agree, to acknowledge, and to accept. They are not the same thing. And so here is my simple argument. Often in life, there's the adage, seek first to understand before being understood. And that's a great starting point, right? Ask great questions, hear another perspective, and consider it against what you knew going into the conversation. I'm all about that. The challenge is it's an incomplete thought. So you're seeking first to understand before being understood. Good. All right, we got that. The challenge is often when we're having conflict with other people, we're just like, I don't understand. And then we seek, and I do this, right? I'll speak from my perspective. I spend so much time wanting to understand a perspective that I do not share, wanting to see it from their perspective, wanting to put myself in their shoes. And all I do is end up getting agitated and frustrated because at some point there's a disagreement. At some point we were raised different. At some point I don't see that perspective leading to success because it will not work for me because I've done it and it hasn't worked, or I'm not even willing to go down that road. So understanding is not the key. I worked with my counselor for quite a while on this. I've been going to counseling for years, and my counseling really revolves around my relationship with other people. I have a pretty good relationship with myself now, and now it's how do I go out into the world and work best with other people. And maybe a year ago, I was going through some conflict, and she said, Andy, accepting another person doesn't mean you have to understand them. And that was like this aha moment. I didn't have it, as she told me, and then I took the information in. It was this aha moment is, hold on, I don't always have to understand them, and I can still accept it. So, for example, classic thing, I talk about being on time often because we all have to show up to life at some point, and on time means different things. So I'll give an example. This actually just happened Saturday night. So I went out with my Army buddy and his wife. And it was myself, my Army buddy, his wife, and her friend. And I'm sitting there in the kitchen catching up with my buddy, and she comes over and she goes, hey, do you want to leave now or be on time? And it was like this weird conflictual, like snarky, hold on. And I go, hold on, what does on time mean to you? And it was like this, and then she started explaining. I go, okay, so when do you want to leave? I don't understand her. What time is on time? We got to a point where it's like we're having conflict. Hold on, what time do you want to leave? Now, let's leave now. And all of a sudden, I was like, okay, I didn't have to understand why she wanted to be early. I don't need to understand traffic. I don't need to understand no, I don't need to understand any of that shit. What time are we leaving? I can accept that being the answer. And I don't have to argue. I don't want to be there 15 minutes early, or I don't want to sit at the bar because I don't drink. None of those things matter, right? We're going to dinner, right? Okay, accept the fact that we are leaving now. Good. And now let's talk about this. This is the challenge we have as humans, and myself, I find myself doing this too, is all of a sudden we want to agree to things. Oh, I agree with you. And agree is not the same as accept. So let's look at some definitions, and then finally acknowledge is the worst of the three, I would imagine. So let's look at something. So let's work with acceptance, because the goal here, begin with the end state in mind. Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, talks about this at nauseum, and I love it, right? Begin with the end state in mind. So to accept is to agree on taking on something or consider something satisfactory, reasonable, or true. Okay, I agree to take this thing on. I might not agree with the thing. I agree to taking it on. I agree to be true. Okay, it's true. You want to leave at this time. I'm not agreeing that it's the right time. I'm seeing that there's truth in what you want, and I can accept that. And now let's look at agree. Have the same opinion about something, to concur. It doesn't matter in this situation whether or not I agree. And then finally, acknowledge. To accept or admit the existence of truth. So let's go back to this what time are we leaving situation. I can acknowledge it, right? Okay, I understand you want to leave right now. And I go right back to doing the bullshit I'm doing. I've acknowledged you. I heard your perspective. I know what you want. And yet, I'm not actually accepting it and doing something different with my life. A lot of the times I've had conflict with people, it's because we want to agree on the same shit. So let's look at something like in business, for example, right? We have different people within business. We're not always going to agree. If we always agree, then why do we have leadership teams? Why do we have multiple perspectives? Why do we seek feedback from others? If ultimately you just want everyone to agree with you, you want yes men, you're just looking for people to execute your vision, or my vision in that case. I demand that our team argues with me. I demand that they show another perspective. I demand that they challenge me. I'm not looking for agreeing. I'm not even looking for an acknowledgement like, hey, Andy, that's a good idea. And then they sit there and twiddle their thumbs, right? Or agreeing, hey, Andy, all your ideas are good and we're always going to go with them. No, I want you to accept, okay, hey, here's your perspective, Andy. We accept it. That's that's the direction you want to go. Have you considered this, right? And now, when they accept my perspective, I'm much more likely to accept theirs. Okay, hey, you accepted this from me. Now let me hear what you have to say. Oh, now I accept that. And now we can start having conversations about the best course of action. And sometimes in life, we can accept that we're living parallel and we're not going to cross. I historically kept relationships in my life that were toxic. They were not good. They were not people that accepted me for who I was. They weren't people that I accepted. I found myself wanting to convince them to see the world differently. And they wanted to convince me to see the world differently because we got stuck in this agreement thing. Oh, we have to agree on everything. It's no, you don't. Why do we have to agree on everything? And then there was okay, I'm going to acknowledge you have a different perspective. Okay, now I acknowledge we're different. And we're still sitting here in this crossroads where it's okay, we're both different. Something's got to give eventually. And that give is acceptance. You can say, okay, we don't need to agree. Table that, right? And I acknowledge where you're at. I acknowledge the challenge you're facing. I acknowledge whatever it is, right? Limiting self beliefs, biased perspective. I can acknowledge those things. And now, how do I accept that about you? And what do I do differently? So let's go back to the on time thing, for example. I am historically, right, in the matrix, right, the XY axis, everything in my life is XY axis, right? And everything is 4 boxes, right? Because you have choices, right? And so, for example, you can either be on time, right, or you can show up as you are, right? Show up when you show up, right? So we can all agree that we want to be in the top right bucket, which is show up who you are, right? Be fully present. We'll say present, right? Show up and be present and be on time. Okay, we all agree that's the best of both worlds, right? And we can all agree that showing up late and not being present is the worst. Got it. So now we've eliminated, we went from 4 options down to 2. So now we have 2 choices. Which is better? To show up on time and checked out, right? On time and not present, on time and distracted, or show up late and present. Because often when I'm running late, it's because I want to finish something up that I'm currently working on. I'm dealing with something that is consuming, and I know that I will struggle in the next venue I go to, knowing that I did not complete a task. I like getting shit done. Or sometimes showing up late because I need some time to myself to decompress and be the best version of myself when I get to this place in life. Often I would have disagreements on this with other people. Sometimes it's business partners, sometimes it's people I was involved with. Hell, it's my family sometimes, right? What time are we going to show up to this thing? My family decided years ago, you come and go as you please. There is no on time. And now people can show up and be present when they are there. If we have a 4-hour party, you show up for 30 minutes, awesome. Give us the best 30 minutes. If you're going to show up for 4 hours and be on your phone and be distracted and be grumpy and be an overall pain in the ass, don't even bother. You're not impressing me or anybody else. And it's even to a point with our family, don't show up at all when you're not ready to be present. And then, as family, we can accept you for who you are. We can accept you when you show up for 30 minutes and you're present. We can accept you that, hey, you know what? Something else in life is pressing. Let's not hold it against you next time. Let's not Monday morning quarterback it. Accept that person wasn't ready, time and space to be there in that situation. And then accept them for where they are later in life. There's a poem that I live by. I found this. I was not seeking this out. I found this poem years ago when I moved to my house in Jackson. I came home from a deployment and I moved into a house in Jackson, Wisconsin. The plan was to live there for a year. And then 7 years later, I moved to the farm I live at now in Mequon. And when I lived in this house, one of the first things I went through the house, and the people that had lived there previous had left a bunch of stuff behind. And so one of the things that I found was this poem on a wooden plaque, and I read it. And I had gone during that time in my life, I was going through a lot. I was going through post deployment, struggling. I was going through new to being a father, and I was going through divorce, and then starting a business and getting into bad relationships. And anyhow, so the poem I read is from Fritz Perls, and it says, I do my thing and you do your thing. I'm not in this world to live up to your expectations, and you are not in this world to live up to mine. You are you, and I am I. And if by chance we find each other, it's beautiful. That's what the poem said on the plaque on the wall, and I've lived by that for the past 10 years. I accept where I'm at in life. I want more. I am not complacent. I'm not comfortable. I desire more. I am confident that I will get there. I also accept people for where they're at today, and that's a very learned thing. What's interesting about this poem, up until a week ago, I never even realized it had one more line. And the final line, it says, you are you, I am I. And if by chance we find each other, it's beautiful. If not, it can't be helped. And I stopped the other day when I read this. And I thought, I've been living by something for 10 years, and I didn't even know there was this last piece. And I thought, oh, I don't like that. Let me find a version of it where it doesn't show that, because I haven't looked into that. And I thought, hold on, it's so true though, right? If by chance we find each other, it's beautiful. And if not, it can't be helped. There are some people in this world you're going to learn parallel with forever and ever. There will never be this cross section. And that's something that we as humans need to accept. We need to accept that not every relationship is for us, accept the fact that not every job is for us, not every opportunity is for us. We do not get to pick those defining moments in our lives. Only in reflection can we find out what those defining moments are. And often when we force things, when we become more agreeable or want people to agree with us, when we want to convince them to be a version of themselves that's fitting us, it will not serve you in the long term. When you find a job you think is everything you've ever wanted because you convince yourself that's the job you need to have, and then all of a sudden you no longer have that job, you need to accept the fact that it wasn't the right job, or maybe it was the right job at one point and it's no longer the right job. When we fire people at our business, which we do often because we work in an industry of high churn, we use the saying, you're not successful here at this company, and we're going to give you the opportunity to be successful in another company. We accept the work performance that they put out. We accept them and for their attitude and their abilities, and we accept them, and we make the decision that it's not a good fit for our culture. It's not a good fit for our operations and our efficiencies. I remember my mom, she fired someone maybe 15 years ago, 20 years ago. My mom grew up, her in her work world, not grew up, her professional life working in kitchens, primarily in senior living facilities and catering and things of the nature. And she fired this woman who'd been working like 25 years and she was the highest performing woman in the kitchen. She was also toxic. And my mom finally fired her. My mom finally had enough. She did the most work, but she also created the most problems. She also had the most disdain for all these other employees. And my mom fired this woman after 25 years or 35 years, whatever the number was, right? She came back and she was not impressed, not happy when she was fired, right? It was a contentious fire. And she came back 6 months later and thanked my mom for showing her that there was other things out there. She was burnt out. She was done. She was great at her job and she hated her job. She had the golden handcuffs of the title and the pay and the benefits and all these things, and yet she didn't want to leave and start over later in her career. And she came back 6 months after having a contentious termination and hugged my mom and thanked her for giving her the opportunity to go be successful somewhere else. My mom in that moment accepted her for who she was, right? So 25 years prior when she got hired, it was a good fit, and it no longer was a good fit. They didn't have to agree on what the menu was going to be or how to run the kitchen. They acknowledged each other's existence for long enough, and finally someone had to get to this point of conflict, this intersection, and make a decision on what that organization was willing to accept. And they decided, we'll accept you. We're not going to accept you as an employee of this organization anymore. My challenge to you, when you find yourself in conflict, when you find yourself having conversations with people, start with seeking first to understand. Absolutely. That's the place you start before being understood. Ask great questions. You can find them in my book, a list of 10 great questions that can be used in almost every situation. Lean into, tell me more when people do give answers and you know there's more to it. Sit back and listen. Acknowledge where they're coming from, right? Repeat back what you thought you heard. And then decide to accept them for where they're at. And maybe the acceptance is, hey, we don't agree on this, and that's okay. In this political charged climate we're in, right? Less than 100 days before the election, all the crap is out there. We can sit there and unfriend and unfollow and argue with all the people in the world, or we can accept the fact that come November, we all get the same one vote. We all get the same opportunity to express our perspective with our power that we have in this beautiful country of voting for whatever leader we accept to be the best fit for America. Between now and then, let's not go out of our way to want to get the other people to understand us, which is often what we see on social media. And why do you need to understand them? And you don't have to agree with them. I talked about my good friends who I went out with Saturday night at dinner. We have very different political perspectives. I love them. I'll do anything for them. I'll do anything for my buddy's wife. I stood up in their wedding as a late ad because another guy didn't make it. There's a lot of things we do not agree on. We acknowledge that we have differences. And at the end of the day, I accept them and love them for who they are. And they do the same for me. And so when we lean into this level of acceptance, when you look around the world and accept things for how they are, change what's within you, change you so that you can have more impact on this world. When you do that, life will become so much better. I thank you for accepting me into your lives every week for 15, 20 minutes. I appreciate that people here come and find me and challenge me and push me to be a better version of myself. And so I want to acknowledge that and accept you for who you are and where you're at. And I want to continue to push you to do the same three things that make us successful in all that we do. Do the fucking thing, tell the fucking world, and show the fuck up. We're going to see you next week.